Well, it's taken a while, but I'm very happy to say I finally managed to track down Johann Joubert. He now lives in Australia, former Plumtree boy. But Joubs has got a hell of a story to tell. I know that. So today we're just going to start off with the early days. Thank you, Joubs, for your time. And Joubs, can we get started with how your family actually ended up in what was then Rhodesia, the sort of Joubert family story.
Yeah, just honest. Thanks for this invite. Um, we My dad arrived in about 47, I think. So he was too young to go to the Second World War, so he started an apprenticeship. So and did fitting and turning. So when he finished at the end of the war, he started looking for a job, but he found that most of the returning servicemen were getting the jobs because, I mean, after all, they've just served, overseas in a war, in a conflict, and so on. So he couldn't find any work in South Africa. He was born in Benoni, born in Malalan, sorry. But two of his brothers, older brothers, had gone to start farming tobacco in Rhodesia, and they were in the Mayo Ranch in Yazura area. And so he decided he's got to go look for a job, and they were expanding the Copper Belt area and looking for artisans. So he was on his way to the Copper Belt in Zambia, and being an artisan, he was a good chance of getting a job there. So anyway, he went to visit his brothers. At that stage, I think Martinez Martin was senior. I don't know which one. I'll have to check on that again. But he was farming in the area. He was trying to get anyone who could play a decent game of rugby to sort of farm in the area, so that Yazura could have a good team. You see, so but
Yes.
anyway, having got to his brothers, they said, "Well, there's a match on this weekend. Do you want to go and watch?" So they said, "Yeah, why not?" And pitched up at the game, and just before the main match, someone said, "Oh, well, one of the backs haven't pitched up. They short a player." So he said, "Well, does anybody play?" So my dad said, "Yeah, he plays a little bit." And he sort of got him some rugby togs, and off he went and started playing the match. And then afterwards, he must have played well, but sufficiently well enough to impress Martinez. So he, at the function afterwards, Martinez sort of tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Listen, I've sussed you out already. I know you're on your way to the Copper Belt, but I want you to come farm for me, but play rugby for the club." So, he's always wanted to farm, and but he then farmed for Martinez and played rugby for Nyazura. And that was just before, I think, 1949, when the All Blacks came around. So I don't think he actually made the top team at that stage, but he was actively involved in farming for Martinez for a number of years. And eventually managed to get enough money to go, I suppose, go to the land bank, and they purchased, or managed to get a farm in the Selous Hartley area, next to his brother.
I'm just going to butt in there because, I think I never told you, but Tini Martin's
Yes.
son, who played fly-off for Rhodesia, he was
Yes.
my schoolboy hero. Oh, Tini. I worshipped the very ground he walked on. And I think I was actually a bit of a nuisance in old Tini's life because I always wanted to be around him. And we used to go on
Yeah.
family holidays to Byra. And poor old Tini, I was like a bloody shadow. I must have
Yes.
wrecked holiday weekends. But yeah, my family and the Martin family go back a long way. So it's interesting. So yeah,
It's
so
amazing.
now your dad ends up in the Midlands, Hartley area, which is where our PK van der Baal was also farming.
And not, it was
Near there.
actually Salou Hartley area.
Yeah.
Got his own farm there, next to his brother Ben. Now, there were four brothers, and Ben is a big 6'4", 6'3" guy, and my dad was like kafupi like me. But anyway, it, that's where somehow amongst all the activities he met my mom, and they got married, and then after that, she had a connection with. Well, to she went to Tronsburg to study as a teacher. So she used to travel, to South Africa and back. Eventually, got a job at Bottershof,
Okay.
and yeah, and at that stage, things were not going so well on the farm. So she got a job there while my dad was trying to get the farm going. But eventually, they lost the farm through basically, I think, there's a couple of years drought, and he couldn't pay his debt, I suppose.
Hmm.
So I went back and worked for the municipality at Salisbury Municipality while my mom was working at Bottershof as a teacher.
Okay. Joubs, your junior school. Where was junior school?
So I was up to standard two. I was at Bottershof,
Okay.
uh, and then my dad got a job in the Lowveld in Triangle, and so we all went off to Triangle. Dad worked at the sugar mill there, and then my mom got a teaching job at Murray McDougall School.
Okay.
And so, so I arrived in standard three, and yeah, it was funny because I was probably quite good at ball skills and that sort of stuff. Could catch a ball and kick it and so on. And as a youngster, as one of the younger guys, standard three, I was played in the A team soccer, and they called me Shorty because I was now the shortest. We had guys like Nigel Horsfall, who was a big, tall guy, and uh, all the others that were senior to me. So the Lowveld guys, they called me Shorty. I wish they called me something Dolly or Longy or something. They might have stretched a bit, but but anyway, yeah, good days in the Lowveld. Really, really enjoyed it.
And then off to Plumtree.
Well, yeah, off to Plumtree after that, and that was through a connection with Bottershof because I said to my mom, I don't want to go to Fort Vic.
Say you probably made the right move because if you'd gone to Fort Vic, you would have ended up with Bury Hume, the McCormack brothers, and those are not the sort of people you want to spend too much time with.
I was unaware of that, but the fact is that I applied to go to Plumtree, and I somehow got a reply to say yes, I can go. So fortunately, as I said, my mom had connections with Renier van Vieren. The schoolboys called him Mr. Fires because van Vieren is like. But anyway, so there was this connection with the van Vierens right from Bottershof days when my mom was teaching them both. And then later Renier went to Stellenbosch, where he played very good rugby while he was there. I think he was knocking on the Springbok trials or something. But anyway, he came back and he started teaching at Plumtree. And my mom said, well, we should maybe have a look if we could go, if you want to go, if it's okay to go there.
So what year do you end up at Plumtree to start senior school?
Yeah, 1970 to 75. So 1970, we pitched up there. And I was fortunate in Triangle. We only had one car, so I ran everywhere. So when I got The main center of attraction at Triangle was the swimming pool after sport and so on. So everybody used to go off to the swimming pool, and then the parents from work or whatever used to go and pick them up. And it was, for me, a challenge to try and run across the golf course and meet them at the T-junction going to what was called the New Village. And be there at the same time as what these oaks have just been picked up and, run around. It's like a loop. The road had a loop around the part of the golf course. So I used to shut across, and then I say, "How did you get there so fast?" I said, "I just ran." So I was always fairly active in that way, um, physically and so on.
And Joubs, your first impressions of Plumtree? Who were your where
Well,
did it all start?
I went to Grey House. I think I was a year behind John, I think, but in the same year, if you know what I'm saying. I was a year old. Being a December baby, my mom said, "Hang on, you have to be at least 6 before you go to high school. Also to go to school." So I was a year older, although not really, because your birthday was in December. But yeah, it was a Grey House, a good time. I think as a new boy, it's always a challenge, but you've just got to be able to do as best as you can.
And Joubs, I know you're a very self-effacing, modest man, but 4 years, 4 years you played first team rugby. I mean, that must be a record.
Uh, I was fortunate. I think I had good hands, and I could kick with both feet. So it doesn't matter where a guy passed the ball, I could catch the damn thing. And so 1972, I made the first team for the first time. We went on a tour to Umtali, I think it was.
Okay.
There was an Easter tournament there, and we participated in that.
Mm-hmm.
Rugby was something that I enjoyed. I played soccer at Triangle. I never touched the rugby ball, except we had one sort of like trial match at Triangle. But it always intrigued me, though. I understood what the game was all about. Yeah, so unfortunately, being such a huge guy, I think, injuries got the better of me over the time. But yeah, it was a good to be in in that group to start.
Joubs, some of the guys that you played with that come to mind, some of the better players.
I've actually got a photograph, but I haven't got it with me now. That particular year was Mike West. He played centre.
Mm-hmm.
Simmons, George Wills, actually,
yes.
He played eighth. Yeah.
Yes.
Who was locks? I'll have to go and have a look at that team again. We actually got a 75 year 75 reunion coming up at the end of October, and it'll be quite fun to just go through some of those particular guys. They won't be there, but just meeting the guys that were in my year. Yeah, so not having played rugby, the guys that were already the under 13 team that I then joined as an under 14 were they were unbeaten the year before. So the first practice, there was a guy called Mike Bradshaw, and he had played fly-off. So I pitched up there, and they said, 18 aside, anybody else who can play fly-off? I said, yeah, I can play, I think. And the very first time he touched the ball, I just took his wheels off, and he had I think I damaged his knees to such an extent that he went and played hockey after that. So it was a bit. And so they said, "Oh well, there's no more under 13A try fly off. Oh, you can play fly off next, then on the first Saturday." And we had a very good team under 14s.
Your pals at Plumtree, Joubs, who were your Shamoris?
I suppose you're here as your shummeries like Gary Watson and Clive Croxford. Well, they all
Hmm.
duck um, with Nathan Scott. So yes, we had we as new boys, Plumtree, when you're a new boy, you've got to know everybody in your year by the first term, and you've got to know everybody in the school by the end of the year. So it was I think it was lucky that I was sporty because the very first weekend we were there was a senior who said, "Oh, you get your stuff," because we came on a Friday or Saturday or something, and the school only started on Monday. And they said, "Are we going for a run?" So I was barefoot and I flipped and clubbed out nearly. It was the senior. So come Monday, So come Monday, there's a buzz around the school hall, dining hall. There's a new boy that could beat Ian Kidneyside, for instance. So, when you sort of are participating and you do well at sport, then you seem like just a brick higher than anybody else in the form.
Yes, it certainly helped. So you obviously did well in athletics as well, Joubs.
Well, yeah, more like cross country and middle distance. So the first 2 years as a junior, I won that, and then the first 2 years as a senior, 73 and 72 and 73, I won as a senior. The first year in a senior role, that was 72. I won senior cross country, and in fact, Janet Smith, Ian Smith came for the sports weekend, and I've got a photograph where she presents me with a cup for cross country, senior cross country. I think that's one of the proud moments.
Yeah,
You don't realize it then. You realize it afterwards.
yeah. Well done, Joubs. And what did you do? M level or A level?
Yes, so I did M's O level, M level, and partially A level Afrikaans mostly. And then we finished off ready to go to national service. But
And so
not
you
not
went straight. You went straight international service the following year.
at in the 75. Yes.
Okay, so just talk us through that. Your call up. Where did you start at Llewellyn, or how did it go?
Yeah. So I was fortunate. I played Craven Week in the last year. One of the guys who was either represented Rhodesia was David Smith from Hamilton. But we had a very, very competitive team, although we were quite, smallish. Um,
Who else?
a
Who else
few.
was in that Craven Week team?
Okay, it was Bruce Burrell. He was flight scrum
Oh,
half.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Bruce was the captain. And then it was me, and then a substitute fly half was Chris Anderson and David Smith. Henry Rosser was the other
Okay,
centre.
yeah.
And then there was a guy called Webster. And then who was the other wing? Noble. Noble was he from Italy? No. And then there was
Was
Poon
John
Pelser.
was Yeah, Pelser and John Barry?
John Berry was flank in that particular team. Bond Throne. Phil Uden was a lock. And then there's Colentianus, Bell,
Yes,
Keith Bell.
yes.
Um,
I still see a lot of Manali. He's got a
really?
restaurant down in Cape Town. He's one of my dearest friends, actually,
Oh, wow.
old
I wouldn't have.
old Mana. And
Yeah.
and actually we've just had a little reunion down in Mutari, and I was with Richard Barry, John's brother,
Yes.
and Mike Barry. We all went to the Udzi Cemetery
Oh,
where
wow.
where
John.
where John's buried. Very,
Yes.
very sad. But in fact, Ian Ross, who you'll remember,
Yes.
um, he said a few words in the little church there, and we all just paid our respects to a lot of the Umtali guys that didn't make it through the war years, and there's a lot of them.
Yes. I think we've a couple of guys that didn't make it from out. It was actually Richard Ekman. He was in my house a few years junior to me, and very nice, polite, young man. And it was, I think he had about 2 weeks left before he was killed in action. Yeah. So we had a very competitive team at Cravenwick, so much so that we played the last or second, the curtain raiser to the main match. Because they grade you according to the style of play and how well you've done through the week. So it was good.
But then, Joubs, it was off to war, and that
Yes,
probably, like for a lot of guys who talented like you, that got in the way of playing rugby in quite a big way.
well, I think the first thing that happened is while I was at Plumtree, one of the things that happened, I actually I read a book by David Sterling about the SAS, and that sort of was always in the back of my mind. And I just, my feeling was I didn't want to be just a national serviceman. So when we got to Llewellyn, within the first 2 weeks, Stu Patterson, you might remember Stu Patterson, they had a farm called Ponderosa outside Marindella.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stu and I clicked quite nicely, and Mr. Captain Scott was the coach for first team Llewellyn, and he put us together, and we had a good time playing with him. But at that stage, there was a guy called Joubert,
Yeah, I
I think
remember him.
from
Yeah.
from Squadron, who was I think he was there on a punishment posting, and because I believe he was quite a naughty bugger, big boy, big man. He was a sergeant, and he said Stu was in his particular, and he said to Stu, "Listen, you guys must get out of here if you can. Go and join SAS." I said, "Well, how do we do that?" So he said, "Well, he suggests that we get fit because ultimately that's one of the criteria that you get measured on." So we spoke to Captain Scott, and he said, "Listen, we want to try and get to SASR." And he said, "Well, you're in luck because in week 5, the SAS are coming for a recruiting drive." So, Stu and I, when everybody went to sleep at night, we used to pack our canvas bags with bricks and go run around the airfield. So although he was in another platoon, we used to meet up and run around the airfield for an hour or two or whatever, and then so we were fitter than anybody else there. So it was so when week 5 came along, Captain Johnson, I think it was a big spiel in the drill hall, in the hall there. They had a cine on parachuting and guys in clippers and climbing rocks and all the usual stuff to make you want to go. But at the end of it, he said, "Well, he sort of gave a description of what they were looking for." And then afterwards, there was paraphernalia on the outside. There was a clipper with, I think there was a saber with emojis on the front, facing forwards and back. And there's a 12-7 somewhere. And there was a guy, I think it was a sergeant standing by, you could ask questions and so on. But anyway, it was what. So after he had done his spiel, he said, "Well, anybody want to do selection? We have a mini selection here before we go off to Cranwell. We're going to take a small group." So we got about 150 guys put up their hands, So, well, he said, 10 minutes, Petey, get outside. We'll go around the airfield. When they shouted go, we went, Stu and I just took off. And we were first and second around it. And then they only took 12 of us, 12 guys from that whole group. The rest, they just said, "Okay, you didn't make it." So we had a bit of an interview, and then mainly to try and assess whether you would be joining as a regular after you've made past selection. So yes, it was challenging in that sense that we at least got to a point we were fitter than most. So yeah, so we got shunted off. The 12 of us got shunted off to Salisbury. We had the weekend off, by the way, so we stopped off So we had our 6-week pass on the 5th weekend. So when we when we get to Salisbury on week 5 or week 6, the other guys they got one more week to go. We were addressed as the Llewellyn Wankers. And we quickly found out that we weren't as sharp as what they were with many aspects of what we'd been taught. But Stu and I could keep up with the PT, which was quite an important sort of criteria. And I think it was Sergeant Major Fisher, or I think it was a colour sergeant then. He said, "How can you let these Llewellyn Wankers beat you?" When we did baby carry or fireman's lift or wheelbarrow races or whatever. But I was a bit lighter than Stu, thank goodness, and he could just shunt off when he carried me. So we always thumped everybody else. But anyway, we eventually, at the end of that week, they got their 6-week pass. And they said, Llewellyn Wankers must stay behind because you obviously don't have the right standard for what the other guys can do at this stage. So out of the 12 of us, after that weekend, there was only 5 of us left, 4 of us left now. And they were myself and Stu, Ens van Staden. I think there was Ian Robinson, and there was one other, Bugs Hill. Okay, there's 5 of us. And of those 5, 4 of us eventually passed selection. So yes, it was come the Monday when the guys come back from the weekend pass. Of the 12 Llewellyn Wankers, there are only now 5 left. 7 gone back to Llewellyn.
Tell us about the selection, Joubs. You went down to Matopos.
Yes. So we, your recruit course. After that, we did classical war and Quen warfare, Quen, which was a part of the 20-week basic training.
Yeah.
But so at the end of that, we knew selection was coming at some stage. So, progressively we'd been carrying more weight as far as on route on back marches, and we were doing pull-ups, 15, 20 pull-ups before you go and eat every meal. We knew that selection was coming, and at that stage, selection was moved to Matopos. Reason being that the Eastern Highlands were just too hot at that stage, and but Matopos is a deceptive piece of terrain. There's lots of gullies and there's lots of thick bush, and there's some wildlife there, and so it was not possibly as predictive as the Eastern Highlands would have been. So our selection, the instructors by then had figured out, where to make you move and work hard and so on. So the selections actually run east-west, but the terrain is actually north-south. So if you look at a map, you'll see all these gullies, and they dropped us off. Oh yeah, so the first day, I don't know if you want to talk about the swimming pool incident.
This is your pre-rev.
Yes, on the pre-rev. So the pre-rev is a period of time where they try and break you down. 36 hours, and we had a brick and a rifle. So the pre-rev, they try and break guys down so that you don't start selection day one in a fit state. And I think there were about 10 other guys who wanted to try selection as well from other units. And before pre-rev ended, they were all gone. They'd given up. So at any stage during selection, if you felt you couldn't carry on, you just, it was no shame. You can just duck out. It was all voluntary. But they made it hard, So it's chariot races and all the PT and, it just carries on for that period.
Boxing, cold water.
Yeah, we didn't have, in particular didn't have boxing in our particular course. For some reason, I don't know why, but we did, however, a lot of physical, gymnastics, if you want to call it that. So, yes, by the end of the pre-rev, I think there were about probably 60 of us left or so. And they then started getting towards evening, and they would look checking our packs to see that you don't have additional stuff. You're allowed to have certain bits of equipment, but you can't have money, for instance. I think they were looking for that mostly. I had Sergeant Viviers who checked my pack, and what I'd done, I'd sewn in some money into the webbing, but I'd done that a few weeks prior to the selection because I knew it was coming. So I sewed into my webbing so that the stitching looked all old and stuff. Because that's the first thing they look for is any new stitching. Because your webbing takes a bit of flack when you're doing stuff. So any new stitching, they just rip it open and check if there's any money there. So Sergeant Vivier said to me, "I know you've got money," but I said, "Sergeant, I've got nothing." I said, "I'll be watching you." But anyway, when they checked your pack, they checked it on the back of the stores truck, and we were standing outside. And when there was a group of us who had our stuff done, one of the DS staff came around and said, you guys stink. I think you should go and have a swim." So this was dark already, and so we had our rifles and our bricks, and off we went through the back gate to Oralite Pool on the double. And as we were going, the front guys were starting to sort of break because we're going into the water now. These guys said, "Get in there." Yeah, we are about 20 of us, 25 of us. We were in two groups, 25 of us leaping into the swimming pool. And we were in PT shorts and a vest and tackies. You'd hit the bottom. We didn't realize how cold it was going to be, but it was flipping cold. So we just jumped out the other side because, you don't linger around because there's other guys coming behind you, and you get tired with a rock, with a brick or a rifle. It's not the thing you want to do. But anyway, got out and formed up, and we marched back to the squadron training troop. And I tell you what, we were standing there shivering because now the only thing you've had all day is water, or maybe a bit of salt. And we were getting cramped. And just as we were starting to sort of get warm up, they said, "We're going back again." And the second time round, they halted us to go. I'm sure it was Fisher. He halted us just in front of the pool edge, and he said, "Right, who wants to go? Who wants to bail out? Who wants to, nice steak, egg and chips at the dining room?" And two guys sort of just said yes. They're not taking that cold water again. So although it was April, May, yes, it was May. It gets pretty chilly in Salisbury at night.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we got back. They had some logs there, and they lined us up, tallest to shortest. And being one of the big boys, I was with a bunch of three other short guys, and we each got given a log, and we were off and on the truck. And then eventually, we set off to Bulawayo. And I tell you what, that was Chandoi. Yes, sir. So you had your rifle, your brick, and the log now. But your pack was now in the stores vehicle, so you couldn't get anything warm out of it. And then eventually getting to Metopus early the next morning, we got to the drop-off point, and they just chucked out a whole lot of maps there on the ground. RV point was rattled off, and then the instructors were gone. So the first time, like 40 hours that you didn't have someone barking at you and telling you what to do. So a short shit said to get our particular pole, and instead of looking where we should have gone, if you'd looked at it carefully at the map, because we were given 150,000 maps, we just took a straight direction straight to the RV point. and that was a big mistake. And I think most of the groups did that anyway, because that meant that we were going to go through all these valleys and dongas and inclines. So every incline was met with a donga on the other, with a ridge on the other side. So yeah, it was a challenging time because two guys in our particular Shutsu group they wanted to give up. Day one already, starting off. So it was a bit of a battle. The other guy that made it with me was, of the four of us who eventually passed, was a guy called David Niven. So him and I sort of tried to coerce the other two to sort of help us get to the RV so that we can carry on with selection. But it took that whole day and that night, and the RV was meant to be 6 o'clock in the morning, and we got there after 8, so there was no one at the RV point. Yes, it was a challenge to do that part of the leg. That was probably the hardest part of selection for me because two of us had to carry the gun pole most of the way. If you have four guys, you can at least rotate. So most of the donkey work was done by old Niven and I. Anyway, long story there. Yeah, so we eventually got to the first RV. We got there late, and there was a letter on the. There's a big cross that I can't remember the name of the hill now. There was a cross on top of the hill, and we thought we had to take the stamp pole up the ridge. So I said, "Hang on, I can't hear any noise. Let me go and have a look." And I got to the top, and there was a letter which said, "If you want to carry on with selection, you must be at Mshileli Dam for the day 2, I think it was, day 3." So Niven and I were now together, and so we decided it's not that far. It's about 26 km if you go by road, and but we had to be careful because the instructors sort of occasionally ambushing the road to catch guys walking on it. But so we slept most of the day. And then that night we shunted down to Mshileli Dam just to be in time for the next morning activities. Yeah, so it was a bit of a challenge, but that was much easier walking down a road at night with the moon shining than it was carrying that bloody pole by yourself through ridges and dongas. So we got to Mshileli Dam, and before every morning our rifles had to be cleaned and you had to shave. Okay. So we moved into camp, and there was Sergeant Major, I think he was Sergeant Major then, Sergeant Major Buchan. He was assisting the staff, the DS staff, Captain Johnson. So he said, so the other guys had already been deployed, they'd been shunted off, and they were doing that particular leg as individuals. And he looked at us and he said, you two are those two missing blokes from, they must know, who's not there for the evening and who's bailed out. So I said, okay, you two are from that short group that didn't make it to the first stop. He said, yep. So he said, okay, he must be hungry. But what had happened, we'd been to the store the day before. There was a store at the entrance of the Matopus. And we had bought some food. And before going into the RV that morning, we ate everything that was in our packs. We had bully beef and bread and cokes and I don't know what else. But we ate it all because if they found out that we'd been to the store, it could compromise your selection. So we ate it all. But now Buchan says, you guys must be hungry. So he made us a huge breakfast of eggs and bacon and sausage and you name it, toast. And I looked at Niven and he looked at me and he said, I can't eat all this. So I was digging a hole with my shoe to get rid of the food because you can't eat all of that after having just eaten the stuff that we had in the packs. So it was quite hilarious that we were in a position. So anyway, we got another rat pack, and I think Buchan he was sort of felt sorry for us because we must have looked really buggered. So he he said, okay, you two guys can stay together for this particular route. But he took us to on the eastern side, the upper side of the above Toguana Dam, because that's where the Harvey was going to be. And it was a part. Most of the route was through TTL. Now the TTL, there's no real bush left. They've been overgrazed and so on. And RV time was also a bit earlier than the other guys because the route was only about 17 or so k's. So he gave us this easy route, and off we went. And we made it well within time. So that's a couple of things that happened there. First of all, I developed a huge blister, so I was trying to nurse this thing with, carrying weight and a blister is not a good thing. It was not a fun thing anyway. And we got to this, it looked like it was a brick building with a zinc roof with a neat little fence around it. And I sat outside in the shade, nursing, taking the plaster off, because you could have plaster. So I drained the sore, the blister, and there was a black lady who was sort of she was sweeping the yard, and I said, "Aina," Afrikaans, and she must have heard that, and she said, she asked me, "Do I speak Afrikaans?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So she said, "Well, she speaks Afrikaans as well." So I was quite astounded. I mean, who would expect there in the middle of Topus or TTL, to have one of the locals speaking Afrikaans, so it was, it touched me quite a bit. But we found out that she had married a miner who had built she was from South Africa.
Okay. Yeah, the lady's talking Afrikaans.
The thing is that you didn't expect it there out in the TTL. And, I've often wondered what happened to after the war because I, never made the effort to go and have a look. But anyway, we got to Toguana Dam well before the 4:00 shut-off and had a quick shower and so on, and busy preparing food. And the other guys started coming in, and they were quite astounded that Niven and I were still on the course. Because when you're on the course, still on the selection, the guys who don't make it to an RV, they just they're gone.
Yeah.
So that night was a bit of a reunion. We were still there and making some food. And next minute, this Land Rover pushes up and says, "Listen, we're doing selection. Okay, so the next day was going to be speed march. You're doing speed march now." This was about 7, 8:00. So we just thought, hang on, we can't do speed march now. We've been shunting around all day in the bush. And so he said, 5 minutes, pistol shot will go. Big hoo-ha about the arrow at Soloswy because speed march ends on Mount Soloswy, 25 k's further on. But the route up Mount Soloswy, if you go the wrong way, you're going to spend a lot of extra time getting to the top. So they were saying, if you first go to the bottom, the arrow's been marked, yes, and you'll get a torch, big spiel. Yes, and we were worried now because, the fact is we weren't going to get there all on time at the same time. So we decided, okay, we'll stick in a group and go as far as we can as a group, and those who want to carry on. So anyway, about 4 or 5 k's down the road, they stopped us. And so the gun went, off we went. A couple of k's down the road, they said, that's a joke, speed marches tomorrow. So we done this extra 4 k's or whatever. So we were quite hosed off at first, but quite fortunate, quite glad that it didn't, that we didn't have to do it at night. So we went back to the camp and quite relieved that we didn't have to carry on. But then, speed march started the next morning. It was challenging hour. So, you want to carry on with the speed march, end of it. So at the end of Speed March, it finishes after about 5 hours at the most. And we were given the rest of the day off. So we went and into a little, next to the road, next to a little tributary, and got some shade. And then the guy came along with a basket full of hukus and chickens on the back of his carry of his bike. So we had all got money at some stage. And in the area, there were a couple of stores. So we decided, okay, we'll talk the guy into going to the stores and buying us some stuff extra, you know. And he's warning him that if he didn't come back by that evening, that we were going to eat his chickens, you see. So we took the basket off, and off he went to the store with all our money and our sort of our list of what we required. And that evening, just before we thought I was going to have a chicken braai, he comes along with his box full of stuff, you know, extra cokes and a few buns and, you know, bread and so on. So it was a good time. So the next day, so every morning, as I said, you have to have your rifle inspected and you've got to shave and so on. So the next day, in the order of how you ended up in the Speed March, we were sent off on a multi-leg final day, we thought. So there were about 5 or 7 different RV points, all different and you had to do it individually. So each one would be sent to another RV point to the guy before him, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And at the RV point, there was an instructor with instructions to the next one, the next RV.
Mm-hmm.
But so when we had to first do a quick recce and make an appraisal of how to attack that position, and then hand it in. But to our surprise, now we were always weighing 30 kilos. Every morning there's a scale, and you pack it to weigh 30 kilos. So we took off, got to the first RV, and this guy said to us, I can't remember who it was, he said, you're late. I said, no, we're not late. And he says, well, here's 2 bricks anyway. So we said, but what for? He says, if you wanted another one, we'll give you a 3rd brick. So I said, hang on, whoa. So he said, it's pointless arguing. You've just got to take your brick and carry on. And so we were collecting bricks and getting heavier instead of getting lighter as the day proceeded. So at every RV, there was this little recce, hand in your appraisal, and then get another brick, you know. And then second last RV, just before that, I think the sixth or 7th one, 6th RV, it was just getting to get dark. And I just thought, I'm not going to make this RV because it's just too far. It's about 6 Ks. And but fortunately, at that point, they said, okay, drop all your bricks. So we just had the 30 kilos of pack now. So I thought, geez, because this is. So we shunted off. Got to just it was a tip tank where the other guys that got there before, they'd set up a all-round defense, and they had a little fire going. So I got to the top, and the moon was only going to come up at about 8, 9 o'clock. And I was shuffling down to get to the RV point, and there's about 17 of us. The guys who got there in time, they were shunted off, 5 of them, and we didn't see them again. So there was about 17 of us. Plus there was Manny Cavallo. He was also not missing at the sleepover at the dip tank. So we had a guard system, and the next morning, before first light, the trucks came, off we went back to Bulawayo. But Cavallo had missed the boat because he decided he'll sleep on the hill because he didn't want to go down in the dark, you know, which was not far. It was only half a K or so down. So next, when he wakes up, there goes the truck outside towards Bulawayo, and he had to make his own way back to Salisbury. Anyway, so we ducked off all of us into an RL, and we got to Brady, and then from there to Kuala. And at Guala, I said, we were starving. We hadn't had any food for a day and a half, whatever. I said to the guys, listen, one of the instructors, can I just phone my mom to say that we're coming through and pick up some food in Kwekwe? Unfortunately, my uncle had a garage called Joubs Auto Parts in Kwekwe, in the main street. And we organized some food. And as we stopped at Joubs Auto Parts, this box arrived in the back of it. I tell you what, there was Turks and a bag of oranges and fresh bread and, stuff like that when you're hungry. So I was sitting there like a Christmas
Christmas.
cash father. Yeah, just dishing all the stuff out. And I tell you what, it just lifted the mood quite nicely. So we eventually got back to Salisbury, showered, and then told to get to the lecture after dinner. And that's when what happened is quite, they always have you wondering what's happening. So each one was called in, and there was this exit door. We didn't called in, and you could just hear all the shouting, and you don't know what they're talking about. But when I eventually went in, they said to you, you're a waste of rations. You've wasted out 20 months at this place. I was standing to attention. I was looking at the wall above the wall because I thought I'd done quite well. And these guys are telling me I'm a waste of rations. So they definitely get you into your mind. And then as I was going out the door, Johnson said, I didn't say a word. Because
what did they say? Basically, you're a waste of rations.
They said, no, they said you failed. You wasted our time. Yeah, you were late. And all the little odds and ends that you didn't do well or whatever. You were late at this RV. And what can you say? So as I was touched, the door handler, Captain Johnson said, listen, Joubert, you made it. Just like, when you get outside, the other guys are sort of all there waiting in expectation to see who's the next guy out. So it was, this is one of the better moments. And
so how many of you made it?
We were 22 that made it. Cavallo eventually, at that point, he came back. He was later on. I don't know. He was also. He came back a couple of days later. He also passed selection. So it's 22 of us.
Okay, Joubs. Listen, and then you went off. You did your para course. You did that at New Serum.
Yes.
And then your passing out parade at Joubert or at.
We didn't have to pass out. Just each particular. The thing was that after you've done your basic training and all these supplementary courses, including static line, I'd then done a mortars numbers course and a medics course and so on. So Major Robinson said that we had to participate in operations before we got given colours. So at that period of 8 months, we only got our colours in August.
Okay.
We had to, so we had to go as part of the call signs, and they'd be giving reports back, I would think, to say whether you.
All right, Joubs. Then let's just talk quickly through your first operational deployment.
Well, the thing was while I was doing para training, and prior to that, I used to hitchhike to Kwekwe to play for Risco under 20s, and then at some stage just before one of the para course deployment, in mornings, we had a muster parade in the morning. Occasionally, Major Robinson said to me, "Hey, listen, you've got to be at Salisbury Sports. You're playing for Rhodesia." So Rhodesia under 20s. That was through playing for Midlands, having to hike from Salisbury to Redcliffe to play for Midlands, and then through that was selected for Rhodesia under 20s.
Wow.
So I managed to play. I managed to play 3 matches for Rhodesia. that all of which we won.
Who was that first game against?
I'm thinking it was Griquas. I've got,
Oh,
my mom has got the files with all the details. I'll get it out and have a look. So
okay,
yeah,
and
we
so
played.
then off the rugby field and back to war. Where was your
Yes.
first?
So to hang on, so Wilson, Major Robinson said I couldn't play the matches external. If we were deployed, that's just so there are 3 matches I was managed to play. That the matches were in the country.
Mhm.
Yeah. Listen, my phone's going to die at this stage. Let me just check here. Okay, that's
Let's
still a bit fine.
Joubs, let's just try and talk through that first op you did, and then we'll finish off.
Yeah, the first op we just done. We had finished our static line course, and we get to barracks on a Friday afternoon, and there's just all the people, all the squadron guys are there, and they're very busy getting ready to go to be deployed. So we were look at it was a camp called Mudzi. There was a call sign already out monitoring the Mudzi camp,
And
and
this was eastern up you cross from Nyanga into
northeast
Mozambique. Yeah,
northeast Elam Mission. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So there were about 100 SAS now to be deployed. They had a call sign watching the camp, and it would have taken. So we walked in 100 guys. I mean, it's like an elephant path at night, if you know what I'm saying. We're going in single file. Couple of incidents on that, but the fact is that we had stayed over before the final attack. We met up with the recce group, but unfortunately, there were meant to be about 80 or so tours in the camp. Okay, the night that we were still coming in, those 80, or the next morning, while we were waiting for the recce team to liaise with us, 50 of those oaks departed. So here were 100 SAS plus to go take out about 30. So the numbers don't match so nicely. But the call signs were put all around the camp, which was identified by the recce group. And then there was a Joubs, 60mm mortars. And the attack went in with the mortar onslaught, and then wait and shoot. And then the sweep line went through the camp. But I mean, so the first contact, I wasn't I would say it was just part of the stop groups. I didn't actually participate. We just covered a section of but that was our first deployment as such. So it was really straight after static line course that
And
we managed to do.
that was across the Garezi River.
No, that was not. I'm not sure if it was a Jarisi, but
Uh,
that's a later one.
okay.
That, yes. So that was Mudzi, and then Fombi camp. That was Fombi camp. I did a recce with John van Aswegen and van der Jeff van der Rijt, and a guy and one other 150 guy, Mark Kleinans.
Okay.
So this Mudzi camp was in June, 14th of June, 12th to the 14th of June, and then the Kaponda, the Fombi one was in December.
Okay. You did the recce. You did the recce, and then you were involved in the attack.
No, recce on what?
On the second one, the Fombi attack.
Oh, we did the recce on the crossing point.
Okay.
Yes, so there's a long story about that whole deployment anyway, because there was RLI as well as SAS groups involved. So that was only in December. December was a huge month for SAS in 76. We did Fombi, which we walked in, and then we did a camp attack on Kaponda. And then we did from Buffalo Range, we trialed the Para-5 concept. Because remember, I think in November they were training RLI because they realized by then that you could nearly throw people out into any sort of terrain. and most of them will survive to carry on the battle. So we trialed that box para-envelopment with Periscope, so that and that one of the attacks in December was called Kaponda, where we did that, and from then on, because it was so successful, we did further attacks using that concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joubs,
So,
let's I'm gonna have to end there, but
yes.
we got lots more to cover.